AITA for leaving with our newborn after my wife walked out to enjoy her youth. My name is Tyler. I am 26 years old. My wife Sarah is 25. We met when I was 22 and she was 21 at a backyard get-together with mutual friends. From the beginning, there was something very clear about her, something she didn't hide or soften. She wanted a defined, stable, and fast-paced life. She wasn't the type to enjoy uncertainty or long processes. While I was still figuring out my career path after college and trying to get established in my job, she was already talking about marriage, buying a house, and having children. She didn't do it as direct pressure, but rather as if she were describing an inevitable future. At first, I even found that attractive. It gave me a sense of direction that I lacked. During the first year of our relationship, everything was relatively balanced. We went out on dates, took weekend trips when we could afford them, and spent time with friends. But little by little, Sarah started mentioning the topic of getting married more and more often. Sometimes she said it in a light tone, like a joke. When we get married, I want the wedding to be at a nice garden venue. Other times she said it with a seriousness that made me a bit uncomfortable. I don't want to waste years on relationships that aren't going anywhere. I would respond calmly, trying not to cause conflict. We are still young. There is time. She would smile, but she wouldn't change her stance. Exactly because of that. If we find the right person early, it's better. 3 years passed. Our relationship was stable, without major crises. We argued like any couple, but nothing serious. At that point, I started to feel that maybe it made sense to move forward, not because I felt pressured, but because I thought it was the logical next step. I proposed to her. Sarah's reaction was exactly as I had imagined. Absolute excitement, tears, immediate plans. Within weeks, she was already organizing everything. I participated, of course, but most of the decisions were hers. The wedding was big, much bigger than I would have chosen. An elegant venue, detailed decorations, live music, a professional photographer and videographer, and guests I didn't even know well. Everything had to be perfect, and it was, at least in appearance. The problem was the cost. Although we both contributed, most of the debt ended up in my name. Credit cards, loans, and payment plans that I knew would take me years to pay off. At the time, I didn't mind too much. I thought it was part of starting a life together. The first few months of marriage were quiet, not perfect, but normal. We were adjusting. Living together is different from dating on weekends. However, over time I began to notice changes in Sarah. She became more critical, more impatient. Small things turned into long arguments. Her tone was different, more dry. Sometimes she seemed upset for no apparent reason. I attributed it to the adjustment, the stress, and the changes. A year later, she started insisting on having a child. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to be a father, but because I was still paying off the wedding, stabilizing our finances, and trying to organize our life. But she spoke about the topic with urgency. I want to be a young mom, she would say. I don't want to wait too long. I tried to postpone it a bit more, but her arguments were constant. Finally, I agreed. She got pregnant quickly. At first, she was happy, very happy. She shared photos, talked about names, baby clothes, and the nursery. She seemed genuinely excited. That reassured me. I thought everything before had just been a phase. Our daughter was born without complications. We named her Ella. When I held her for the first time, I felt something hard to explain. It wasn't just love, it was responsibility, it was fear, it was a feeling that everything had changed forever. The first few months were intense. Little sleep, learning everything from scratch, organizing schedules. I tried to help as much as possible. I got up at night, even if I had to work the next day. But at 2 months old, something started to change. Sarah became constantly irritable. It wasn't just exhaustion, it was something else. She complained about everything. I can't sleep. I don't have time. My body changed. I'm not the same anymore. I tried to understand her. I thought of postpartum depression. I suggested professional help. She got upset. I'm not crazy, she replied. What I feel is normal. But her comments started getting harsher. One night, after Ella had been crying for a long time, Sarah said something that left me completely speechless. I feel like I ruined my life. She didn't say it yelling. She said it tiredly, but without immediate regret. I tried to smooth things over. You are exhausted. It's normal to feel like this sometimes. She didn't answer. From that moment on, those kinds of phrases started to repeat. I can't go out. I can't do anything. While others are living their lives, I am stuck here. She started comparing herself constantly to other people. She looked at social media, photos of trips, parties, people moving to new cities, and every image seemed to bother her more. We rushed, she would say. Everything went too fast. I tried to remind her that we had made those decisions together, but she always gave the same answer. Yes, but I didn't know it would be like this. There were times when she was distant, even with Ella. She did what was necessary, but without enthusiasm. I compensated as best I could. I took care of the baby when I got home from work, organized the house, and managed the finances, but the atmosphere was no longer the same. There wasn't constant yelling, but there was a permanent tension. One night, while we were eating dinner in silence, she said something that changed the way I saw her. Don't you feel like we missed out on something? I asked her what she meant. On really living. I didn't know what to answer in that moment. I was also 26 years old. I had also left things behind, but I had never seen it as a loss, rather as a decision. To me, building something had more value than trying everything. Life is not a race, I told her. Everyone goes at their own pace. Sarah shook her head slowly. Don't you understand? I feel like my youth ended before it began. That phrase stayed with me. From that day on, she began repeating similar ideas more frequently. You only live once. I don't want to regret it later. I don't want to feel like I never experienced anything. I asked her several times what exactly experiencing meant. She never answered clearly. She said she needed time, that she needed to find herself, that she wanted to know who she was beyond being a wife and a mother. I listened to her, but something inside me was starting to break. Not because her doubts were invalid, but because it was becoming increasingly obvious that she saw our daughter as an obstacle. There were nights when Ella was sleeping peacefully, and Sarah would just stare at the ceiling in silence, completely distant. I tried to talk to her, but it was as if she were no longer present. One day, while we were tidying up the living room, she said it again. Maybe I made a mistake. I looked at her. In what? In everything. I didn't push it further at that moment, but I could no longer ignore it. Still, I kept thinking it was a phase that with help and time, we could overcome, until something happened that changed everything. One night, Ella started crying in a different way. It wasn't her usual cry. It was higher-pitched, more desperate. When I picked her up, her skin felt hot, too hot. I quickly went for the digital thermometer we always kept on the nightstand. 101 degrees. My reaction was immediate. I am not a doctor, but I knew that in such a young baby, that wasn't normal. I went to the bedroom. We have to go to the emergency room, I told her. Sarah opened her eyes, annoyed. She checked the time. It was past midnight. She sighed. Do you really think it's that serious? I stayed silent for a second. She is a 2-month-old baby, I replied. We can't take any risks. She rolled her eyes. Babies get fevers sometimes. Just turn down the air conditioning, and that's it. I'm sleepy. I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't just frustration, it was bewilderment. No, I said, trying to stay calm. We are going to the hospital. She turned toward the wall. Do whatever you want. I didn't argue anymore. There was no time. I grabbed the diaper bag, packed the essentials, documents, clothes, the thermometer, and I left with Ella in my arms. While driving to the hospital, I felt fear, but also something else, a discomfort I couldn't explain. At the emergency room, they saw us quickly when they noticed how small she was. The doctor examined her seriously. When I told him the temperature, he nodded. You did the right thing bringing her in, he said. In newborns, this can escalate quickly. That phrase stuck with me. You did the right thing bringing her. Not you both did. Maybe it wasn't intentional, but that's how I felt it. They gave her medication, monitored her, and ran basic tests. I didn't leave her side for a single second. I saw her so small on that exam table that I felt guilty, even though it made no sense. After several hours, the fever started to go down. Around 6 in the morning, they discharged us. I walked out of the hospital exhausted, but relieved. I thought the worst had passed, but no. On the way back, I started going over what had happened. Sarah's reaction, her indifference, her tone. I tried to justify it. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she didn't understand how serious it was. Maybe. But every explanation sounded weaker than the last. I got home determined to talk, not to fight, but to really talk. This couldn't be ignored anymore. I opened the door carefully. Everything was quiet, but something felt strange. The living room was messy. An open drawer, things out of place. I thought maybe it was me in the rush of the night. I walked toward the bedroom. The closet was open and half empty. I stopped. I looked closer. Several of her things were missing. Clothes, shoes, her small suitcase. I felt a pressure in my chest, something cold. On the bed, on her pillow, there was an envelope. I picked it up. My hands were shaking. Inside, a folded piece of paper. I opened it. I left. Don't look for me. Take care of Ella. I think you will do it better than me. I need to live. I need to go out with other men. I didn't enjoy my youth. I read it again and again. There was nothing else. No apologies. No long explanations. Just that, direct, cold. I sat on the bed with Ella asleep in my arms. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't think of anything for several minutes. Just emptiness, as if everything had suddenly shut down. I didn't cry right away. I think my mind simply wasn't processing what had just happened. I read the letter again. I need to go out with other men. That phrase kept repeating in my head. It didn't say, I need time. It didn't say, I'm confused. It didn't say, I will be back. It was a clear, cold, definitive decision. The first thing I did was call work. I won't be able to come in today, I said. I have a family emergency. I didn't give details. I couldn't. I hung up and sat on the bed looking at Ella. She was sleeping peacefully. After everything that had happened that night, she slept as if nothing was wrong, and that, somehow, gave me clarity. I looked at the letter again. For the first time, I didn't just feel emptiness. I felt something else. Understanding. Everything she had said in the previous weeks wasn't just complaining, they were warnings. We rushed. I want to live. I feel like I lost my youth. They weren't random phrases. She was preparing to leave, and she did it at the worst possible moment, while her daughter was in the emergency room. That was what really changed something inside me. It wasn't just that she left, it was how. I checked my phone. Nothing, not a message, not a call. I tried calling her. It went straight to voicemail. I didn't know if she had planned everything or if it was impulsive. The mess in the house seemed to indicate a rush, but the letter didn't. The letter was clear, thought out. I spent the morning on autopilot. I prepared Ella's medicine, sorted out the basics. I put the letter away. Every movement was mechanical, as if I were functioning without thinking. At some point, I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked different, more tired, more serious, as if I had aged years in a few hours. I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know if I should look for her, if she would come back, or if she was already with someone else. But there was one thing I did know. I was now alone with a 2-month-old baby, and oddly enough, I didn't feel fear. I felt determination. The following days were intense. There was no time to process anything. There was a routine to uphold. Feeding, medications, doctor's appointments, work, everything depended on me. On the second day, I made an important decision. I called a family law attorney, not out of revenge, not out of pride, but for protection. If she ever decided to come back and claim her rights, I had to be prepared. The attorney was clear from the start. Document everything. The letter, the unanswered calls, the medical records, any proof of abandonment. We started the process for divorce, and I petitioned for sole custody. It wasn't immediate, but it left a record. During the first few weeks, I tried contacting her several times, not to get back together, but to know, to understand. She never answered. Her family didn't help either. Some said they knew nothing, others simply avoided the subject. 1 month passed, then 2, then 3. Nothing. Not a single call asking about Ella, not a message, not any financial support, nothing. That absence started to become key. Meanwhile, my life changed completely. I hired an experienced nanny with a background in infant care. I didn't want to take chances. After what happened, I needed control, security, and peace of mind. She had strong references and experience. Even so, I installed home security cameras, not because I distrusted her, but because I felt I had already been naive once. My expenses went up a lot, but I adjusted everything. I sold things I didn't need. I cut out unnecessary spending. Every decision had a goal, stability. It was in that context that an unexpected opportunity arose. A position opened up at my company in Denver. Better salary, more responsibility, but also more flexible hours that would let me be there for Ella. My boss recommended me. I didn't decide immediately. Moving with a baby wasn't easy, but it also meant starting over, far away from everything. Besides, my aunt lived in the Denver area. She was a retired pediatrician. When she found out what happened, she offered her help without hesitation. That tipped the scales. I accepted. Before moving, I coordinated everything with my attorney. I notified him of the relocation. Everything had to be documented properly with the court. We moved when Ella was 7 months old, and surprisingly, everything was easier than I imagined. My aunt welcomed us with a warmth I didn't know how much I needed. She got involved immediately. Her experience gave me peace of mind. Eventually, I rented a place near her house so I could come and go easily. The new job delivered what it promised. More income and, most importantly, more time with my daughter. I was present for everything. Her first solid foods, her first attempts to sit up, her first real laughs. And it was right in that moment of stability when Sarah reappeared. 5 months later, not with an apology, not with concern, but with a direct, cold, threatening message. I know you moved. You have no right to take my daughter. If you don't come back, I am going to take you to court for kidnapping. I read the message several times and, to my surprise, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. 5 months without showing up, and now she was talking about rights. I didn't reply. I called my attorney. I sent him the message. Don't answer, he told me. Let her take it to court. And she did. Sarah filed a petition in family court, claiming I had wrongfully taken the minor. The process was long, exhausting, but clear. Evidence was presented. The letter, the medical records from the emergency room, the unanswered calls, the total lack of contact, the financial support and care I had provided, everything. The key point was the voluntary abandonment, the letter where she herself stated she needed to leave and that I would take better care of the child. She tried to justify it as an emotional crisis. The court acknowledged it, but also made something clear. Parental responsibility cannot be abandoned without consequences. My aunt testified. A psychological report was submitted. Ella's primary bond was with me. That carried a lot of weight. Finally, the judge made the decision. Full custody was granted to me. Sarah lost her custody rights due to proven abandonment. Any future contact would have to be supervised. When I heard the ruling, I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel immediate relief. I felt closure. After that, Sarah disappeared again. No apologies, no explanations, just silence. Today, as I write this, Ella is over a year old. She is a healthy, curious, calm little girl. My life revolves around her, but I don't see her as a burden. I see her as a daily choice. Sometimes people ask me if I hold a grudge. No, I don't have room for that. What happened was a series of decisions, some rushed, some selfish, some necessary, but all of them were consequences. If I understood anything from all this, it's that you cannot build your freedom on the abandonment of those who depend on you, because sooner or later, that decision defines you. I don't write this as a victim or as an example. I write it because at one point I thought my life was ruined, and with time I understood that it wasn't. It just changed direction. And in that new direction, everything became clearer since that night in the emergency room. My priority, my responsibility, and my decision, taking care of my daughter, even if that meant starting completely from scratch. Comment: I really hope this story resonates with you the way it did with me. Your self-respect is something worth protecting, no matter what life throws at you. Setting clear boundaries helps you safeguard the peace you and your loved ones deserve. Stepping up to full responsibility can bring a sense of purpose that nothing else matches. Healing begins the day you choose to focus on what you can build rather than what was lost. Kindness starts with how you treat yourself and those who depend on you. Learning to choose calm over uncertainty is a quiet form of strength. You have everything inside you to create stability, even in the toughest times. Take a moment today to think about the relationships that truly support your growth. I believe you can move forward with grace and build a life that feels right for you. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.